In this week's video, we're rebuilding the transmission in the old green machine here. All right, so I noticed this noise when I rebuilt the Samurai a couple of years ago. I rebuilt everything pretty much, but the transmission. I should have did it while I had it out. I should have did the transmission when I had the 16V in the transmission out, and I didn't. So now I notice this noise. Doesn't sound very good. It's kind of growly. It's getting worse, louder, and it's just time to rebuild the transmission. So I'm gonna fire it up, show you how it sounds. Hopefully the mic will pick it up. I'm not sure if it will, but we'll try anyhow. So the sound is pretty much not there when the clutch is in, but when you let the clutch out, you'll really hear these bearings roll in a real kind of a dry bearing sound. I don't know how to explain it, but you'll hear it. So we'll see if we can hear it. You might be able to hear it better if I go down low. Clutch in, clutch out. So hopefully you can hear it on video, but it's pretty nasty sounding and it's getting worse. So it's time to rebuild this transmission. And I ordered the parts from Roadless Gear. Took a week and a half to 2 weeks, like typical, to get here. They just showed up today. I picked them up and they look good. Japanese bearings. I see one bearing is a Chinese bearing. Hopefully that's not gonna be trouble. But follow me over here and I will show you the transmission kit. So if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, share these videos, like, do all that good stuff that everybody tells you to do on YouTube. And stay tuned, I got a ton of content coming up. I got this transmission build. I've got a hybrid rear diff that I'm gonna be building from a Tracker third and a Samurai axles. And I'll be putting the locker in there and setting up for the Trail Tough spring over Epic Trek suspension lift that I have in that Samurai. So I'm gonna set all the pinion angles and all that back to the way it should be on the new rear diff. And then hopefully that's enough fixing on the old Samurai and I can get to doing some wheeling and exploring and whatnot. I've been itching to do that. I was really planning to do it. Now this transmission trouble comes up. So we're gonna tie into her. We're gonna get that baby up and rolling, and it's gonna be hopefully a good summer. So stick around. Let's rebuild this transmission. Okay, so here's the transmission kit that I got. Come in a box, packaged decently. There's a bearing there. That's the Chinese bearing. It says China on there. Not overly thrilled about that. I wish they were all a Japanese bearing. But it comes with these made in Japan, Nachi Fuji Koshi Corp, if I pronounce that right. So come with a bunch of bearings. These are a Japanese Koyo. This one's an NSK and this one's a Koyo, both Japanese bearings, so I think those will be good. And a little needle bearing set. I'll find out where that goes when I get to it. And then a couple of seals. Imagine your input and output seals, basically. And this Chinese bearing. That's really all there is to the, oh wait. And I also, while I'm in there, I may as well do the synchros. So I ordered the synchro kit too. And a new, the bolt for the transmission. Here's a shifter sheet for one or the other, the tranny or the transfer case, right here and here. But here's the new synchros. So I figured while I was in there, I may as well do the synchros too. I mean, because sure enough, you'll get in there and start wanting to rebuild that transmission and you're gonna see a chunk or something missing out of these synchros. So I figured I may as well order them for the 60 bucks or whatever it was. I mean, it's gonna be well worth it. It's not like I can just run down to the store and grab these things if I need them, so I figured I'd order them. And then she's gonna be like new in there. Hopefully none of the gears look bad. Hopefully none of the bearing races spun on the shaft anywhere. we'll find out when we tie into that baby tomorrow after work. I'll start ripping that out. Okay, so we got the tranny out from the Samurai, and that was a major pain in the butt taking it out from the bottom side. There's like not a quarter of an inch to spare. But I got it out on the table. I removed the throwout bearing here, the arm, the sensor. Don't forget to unplug the sensor when you pull the tranny or you rip it out like I did. Crap. And to remove this end, it's basically you just undo all the bolts around the end cap. Hold it the right way. And just give her a couple of hits with a dead blow hammer on either side to break it free from this surface. And then I just took the dead blow hammer and I hit right here to slowly, you know, drive it up until I could work it off. And it came off fairly easy, not too much troubles. So now we're just gonna lay her down on its side here like this. We'll undo all these top bolts and this top section should come off. Now we got all our bolts out here. Hopefully it should just lift off, and I've got it broke free. Set that right there. It might be just this front input bearing that's hooped. There's the culprit right there. That lower bearing. All right, so now we're just gonna pull this bearing set out, or this gear set out. Set him down. I like to keep putting clean rags down to, well, basically keep things clean. There's a snap ring on this one that's holding it from sliding out the back, I believe. So we'll get the old snap ring pliers. And here you can see this culprit, this bearing. No wonder it was making a ton of nasty noises. It's a good thing I got to it before it ruined it. And I think I might have hopefully got it just in time here. Okay, so the trick to getting this gear off is just using a gear puller, and it pulls off pretty easy. I was a little bit stumped on how this was going to come off, but it actually comes off right easy. Well, I guess I need to pull you a little further. Oh, there we go. Snap ring right here that we need to take off. There we go. That snap ring comes out, and then we should, I suspect this bearing's probably kind of pressed in there, so we can maybe try and drive it out with our dead blow hammer, but we'll see what happens, what works here. All right, and to get this bearing off the back off, as I just got this little apparatus here. So make sure that it can't slip off, and then we'll just hang on to the gear set and give it a whack. Huh. Look at that. Came right off. And then we should be able to get this gear set out. We can clean it up and inspect it, see how it looks. All right, so we got the cases all cleaned up. We got the gear sets cleaned up. I'm gonna reinstall this gear set first. And then once I have this gear set and these bearings out of the way to keep it a little less confusing, then I'll take this gear set apart, one piece by one, keeping it all in order, and then I'll replace the bearings. Some of the bearings are good, but we're gonna replace them anyhow. While we're in here, we're gonna replace the synchros while we're in here. May as well. And then we'll start putting her back together. So we'll take this gear set here, real carefully so we try not to mar up the bearing surfaces. We'll drop him in there. So just like when you're building an engine, it's nice to pre-lube some stuff. So I'm going to pre-lube these bearings. That way they don't have a chance of starting dry. And we just have to basically tap these bearings in, seat them into their place. Okay, so I got her drove back, the bearings are drove back in. This bearing is seated where it needs to be. This one's flush back here. Now we just have this snap ring. This snap ring goes in here. There we go, look at that. No noises. Nice. Okay, now we're gonna set this guy aside. So now basically all we gotta do is put a little lube on these splines. Put that gear on. Gear on. And then this bearing here is ready to go on. That feels like she's seated. Okay, there's those parts out of the way. So here's a little trick to keep all these, when you take all this stuff apart, in order and in the right direction, is to just have yourself a piece of wire. Here I got some TIG welding wire here, and when you just pull it apart, you just put things back on just like that, and then you'll know, when you keep it in order, as it comes off, you keep sliding these pieces where they gotta be, then they stay in order and in the right direction, and then it's just a reverse process to put it all back together. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull this bearing, take all these gears off, pull this bearing, change the synchros that we have here, and you can pretty well just match your synchros up to make sure you have the right ones. So there's 3 identical of this size and 2 identical of the big ones, so it shouldn't be hard to mix up. Okay, so even though this bearing here feels really good, and it feels like you can't feel any play, it doesn't make no sound. I don't know how many kilometers are on this transmission. Could be 100,000, could be more, could be less, who knows. But I know I have a brand new bearing right here, so I may as well put the brand new bearing in, replace everything brand new, then I know I'm good. And if I was to leave this one bearing out, put it back in, she starts making noise in 6 months, maybe it's that bearing, who knows, right? So we're just gonna put all new parts in. All right, so we got a new cage bearing inside of here, and we press the new bearing on here. This little shaft here is done. It can sit off to the side there. These parts here are done, so we're gonna put them over here. Just try and keep things in order in case I gotta take stuff apart and re-look at it. Here's something to know. This little sleeve here holds a ball bearing. There's a tiny little ball bearing in here that if you're a little rough when you're taking it apart, you could lose that ball bearing. And that actually sits in that little hole there. That's good to know. So I'm putting the new ones in on here so that I know I just have to put it all back together. And there's lots of these C-clips in here. So when you go to pop these C-clips off, I don't have the right tool for it, so I'm just using 2 screwdrivers. But when you go to do it, put a rag over it so you don't lose it. Just like that. Now I'm a little disappointed that the transmission rebuild kit doesn't come with all these cage bearings that are inside of these gears. I really wish it would have had them. Hardly can call it a rebuild kit if you don't have all the bearings. What if one of them cage bearings were shot? You know? Oh, that one's got a ball bearing too, it just fell out. Another good reason to have a rag on the ground there is to catch them ball bearings that drop out. Okay, so now we're gonna have to put our bearing removal tool on there, and we're gonna have to press this bearing out. So now that you got this tool on here, you probably could stack up some 2x4s here and hit it here with a dead blow hammer, but I'm gonna take it over to the press and press it out. Goes on there. And another ball bearing. Right there. That guy can sit right there because we're going to basically start reversing and putting the new stuff on. So I'm going to just reverse this order, put all the new parts back on, and I'll show you when I got her all completed. Okay, now we just put this last little partial shaft in it. And there she is. Everything seems to work like it should. All the gear teeth look fine. Doesn't look like she got hurt while those couple bearings were loose. Like this one here is nice and tight now. They're all good and tight. Now we can put her back in the body. There we go. So that helps when you got the right snap ring on and everything back into place. So there she is. The only noise it has is the gear lash. There she is. Now we just need to clean all these surfaces up here real good and put a thin layer of the right stuff on there and start putting her back together. We got to put the new output seal in and the new input seal in, and we're ready to pop her back together and stick her in the Zook. So okay, now we got everything all lubed up. All the gears got a little bit of grease on them. Should be good. There'll be no dry start. And the biggest thing you want to do so you don't have a leaking transmission is to clean these gasket surfaces as good as possible. Scrape the old goo off. Don't use a metal scraper on this aluminum machine surface because you'll scratch it. Use a plastic scraper if you have to. Clean it all real good. Wipe it down with acetone. Right out of high school, I worked in a race engine rebuilding shop, and we cleaned every gasket surface super clean and either wiped it with brake cleaner, which I would prefer, but I'm out. But acetone works too. It doesn't leave a residue at all. And then you put your right stuff on there, you put your mating surface on there, and you won't have any leaks. I like to use acetone. Acetone is the Frank's Red Hot of a mechanic's workshop, because I put that beep on everything. And here we're going to use the right stuff because it's plainly the right stuff. So we just want a thin layer. Now we're ready to drop the top of the case on. And you want to make sure you get your shifter forks in the slots where they're supposed to go. Push her down, don't force it down. Make sure it seats on its own. And you should be smiling. I'm gonna go ahead and torque this down. All right, we're gonna put the end cap on here. We got a light layer of the right stuff on there, and we're just gonna try and drop this on here nice and easy. All right, so we got the transmission all rebuilt. So I ran out of battery power and even space on the card yesterday when I was filming, and I didn't basically film totally finishing the back half here and putting the input shaft in, but it's basically simple. Put your seals in the input and in the tail shaft and just bolt it up, so fairly simple. So that wraps up the old transmission rebuild. I realized I didn't go into a whole lot of detail on it, but it's hard to film that. You know, the camera would be rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling while you're changing those gears out and whatnot. So anyhow, it's a pretty simple job, pretty basic tools. If you got yourself a little hydraulic press, mine's just a little 12-ton hydraulic press, some basic tools, some snap ring pliers and whatnot, anybody can rebuild it and save yourself a ton of money. About $100 for the rebuild kit. Comes with the bearings, 2 seals and a cage bearing, and really that's about all you need to rebuild it. I bought synchros too, so there's new synchros in there. There could have been a couple more cage bearings. If it were me, I would have rather had 2 more of the cage bearings that go into the 2 of the bigger gear sets in there, but they seem fine. So if you're liking this sort of content, go ahead, subscribe, share, like these videos, hit the bell to be notified for future videos. I'm putting out videos every Friday. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @Fabbin_Adventures. Look in the description below to the link to my store where you can pick up shirts and hoodies. Help support the channel. We'll catch you guys next Friday.